Tracy Martin.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. I stand on behalf of New Zealand First to disagree with both previous speakers. So I stand on behalf of New Zealand First to explain why we disagree. It's not that we don't understand. It's not that we don't understand the advice that was given to the Select Committee way back in 2005, 2006, nor is it that we don't understand the advice that was given to the Select Committee only last year. We understand that we had a member on that Select Committee, Andrew Williams. However, it is our view that the people of Manukau have been let down by this Parliament. It is our view that the Select Committee could have done more. And while they might have recommended that this bill not go forward, they could have made other recommendations. And I note very clearly that the two previous speakers have relied on advice that Auckland Council can create a bylaw already. And that is true. That is absolutely true. As a person who was part of the submissions around the Rodney District Council and the laws and the bylaws that were created then to create areas where this industry could do its business without interfering with the everyday lives of the other citizens in that area, I know that what Mr Simpson said is true. The Rodney District Council had very strong laws. Actually, of all the amalgamated council, the Rodney District Council had the most conservative bylaws around this particular industry. And it was threatened on several occasions with being taken to court because it wanted to protect and fit inside the current legislation, but it also wanted to make sure that the citizens that paid the rates in that area also had a level of protection. So we created those bylaws. And then the Rodney District Council was absorbed into the Super City of Auckland. And because the Super City of Auckland's absorption has not worked as quickly as perhaps was imagined, those bylaws still stand just in the 46% of the landmass of Auckland, which is Rodney District, or was Rodney District. However, it is a cop-out, quite frankly, to rely on what is a true statement, a theoretically true statement that a bylaw can be created, because it absolutely can, but then it must be enforced. So one of the things, and I think the other thing too that is interesting about that is, as a member of the Rodney Local Board, the bylaws staff had to go around every local board once we had this amalgamation of the Super City and had to ask about prostitution as a business and what sort of controls would we want to put in place to flatten out the bylaws across the whole of Auckland. And there's one of your other things. I assume that the Select Committee had a briefing on the fact that this is now about flattening out bylaws across the whole of Auckland. So any bylaw created or any issue that you might have in Manukau City, or what is now Manukau City, inside the Super City would actually have to be assumed across the whole of the city. But what was interesting about that consultation was that the Auckland staff, the Auckland Council staff, told local board members, you don't need to create a bylaw. You don't need to create a bylaw because these are hawkers. So really this is just about hawking. And so we can just use the current bylaw, which is a hawking bylaw, and then we can actually go and issue these people with a ticket. Now let's just have a think about the practicalities of that, because what has just been said was that this bill wasted 10 years of this Parliament's time. But this is a real issue to real people who are just trying to go about their daily lives. So apparently there is a hawking bylaw already on the books, and we can send out bylaws officers at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Order.
4 o'clock in the morning.
I apologise to the member for the rudeness.
Right, sir.
Thank you.
At 4 o'clock in the morning to go and give a ticket, to go and fine the prostitutes who are outside these people's houses, leaving used condoms up on their doors, abusing them when the resident of the property wishes to get some sleep. Apparently, and it is a truism, we can send a bylaws officer out and give them a ticket. How does Mr Simpson think that's going to go down? It's all very well and good to say you can. It's all very well and good to say you have the ability to, but it's a completely another thing to actually say how will that be, how will that take place? How? You can, but how do you do it? There's absolutely no practical thought inside the Select Committee's response to this bill. If the Select Committee actually, in both three parliaments that it dealt with it, over the 10 years, where was the will to actually sort this out for the people of New Zealand? Where was the will to not only address street prostitution because of the residents that were being affected by it, but what about the underage trafficking that's now taking place on the streets? What about that part of which some sort of legislation in this House might address? Well, then, so here we go, we've got it again. We're going to leave it to the people on the street to have to deal with it. This Parliament brought in a law, and these gentlemen apparently are very supportive of it. This Parliament brought in a law and then dumped it out there for the people of New Zealand to deal with. And apparently when the people of New Zealand come back to their Parliament and say something's wrong with it, and we would like the Parliament's assistance to actually fix it, apparently it's in the too hard basket. Apparently it's 10 years of wasted time, is what the two speakers before said. These are the citizens of New Zealand who pay our wages, who have come to this Parliament and said something is wrong with a piece of legislation. They're not asking for that legislation to be overturned. Nobody here is. What they're asking for is recognition of a problem and to come up with a solution. And this House is supposed to be here for them. So while this bill will fail, New Zealand First will support it. We'll support it because it actually is an issue that this House needs to address. It needs to be addressed. And we refuse to actually slap these citizens in the face and say it wasn't important enough. We decided not to put any other solution in here or any other recommendation in here. We decided to just say it was 10 years of our time. Too bad, go away, deal with it yourself, ring a bylaws officer at 3 in the morning, call a police officer and go into court and take all that time out of your day and your life because this government, this Parliament decides that it's not worth their time.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those are of that. Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr.